League Two is meant to be a league that's unpredictable. It's meant to be a league where the unexpected should be expected. But over the weekend, it delivered next to no surprises whatsoever. 6 of the top 7 won. In fact, it was only Wimbledon that didn't, drawing at Colchester United. George, of the 6 that won, that's Walsall winning 2-0 at Morecambe, Donny 2-1 at Accrington, Notts 2-1 at home to Tranmere, Bradford beating MK 2-0, Port Vale beating Salford by 2-1, or Crewe beating Barrow 3-0. What's the best win out of that lot?
I think the best win, the most significant win, is Crewe's defeat of Barrow. I think it has to be, purely because, I think in terms of dominance, you'd have to say Bradford's defeat of MK Dons in terms of performance. But in terms of the significance, given recently Crewe have been in a bit of a tailspin. This is their first win since the 18th of January, and even that was a 1-0 win against the Morecambe side, threatened with relegation. In fact, if you look back at the teams that they've beaten, it's pretty consistently teams down towards the bottom end in recent times. And yet they came up against a Barrow team who've been relatively impressive on Andy Wing so far, and they came away 3-goal winners. They had Aaron Presley to thank in part, because the best 2 chances of the kind of first half fell at Presley's feet, and he one on his head and one on his foot, and he missed them both. The second of which was in particular a pretty bad miss before O'Riordan tapped home from a free kick. Tommy Lowry tucked home a penalty just after half-time before Matas Holacek, who's been really bright in recent weeks, off the back of just signing a new long-term contract, made it 3-0. So I think, given just how bad Crewe's results have been, and also the performances alongside, it's important to point out too, this wasn't an unlucky run where Crewe have kind of come unstuck in some decent performances. They have been honking in the last month or so. So a home win against the Barrow team that by no pushovers by any stretch, a resounding win. I think in terms of their aspirations to finish in the top 7 was incredibly significant.
I mean, some of the absences that Crewe have make them look like a completely different team entirely from the one that was doing so well. Top of the pitch. I mean, it's so hard with injuries, isn't it? Like, how much is pure bad luck and something that you can't possibly predict? How much is poor decisions when it comes to training, or decisions made in terms of rotation, or poor professionalism from the players? Like, you cannot possibly know. How much of it comes down to the recruiting of the players that you sign, of how old they are, what's their injury history, are they getting to a point where injuries are going to be more likely to be sustained? I say all that to say that the top end of the pitch has been an absolute mess for Crewe this season, where Shiloh Tracy is the only player that is a natural either winger or striker to have started more than 15 games. Bear in mind, Crewe have played 33 league games this season. Tracy has started 26 games. He was missing here, so he's unavailable. Lancaster started 14 games, had a lovely little flurry, didn't he? But now he's out injured. Kane Hemmings, 8 starts, 700 minutes. Bogle, 9 starts, 900 minutes. Chris Long, 3 starts, 400 minutes. The youngster Tebow, who should never be starting games for Crewe. That wasn't the plan when they signed him. It's just because of the absences. 3 starts, 500 minutes. I mean, they were pretty light on numbers at the top end of the pitch anyway, even if everyone's fit. But it's just remarkable absences, and impressive to get a win in those circumstances, I must say. I think that Port Vale beating Salford could be the biggest win, the best win of the group that we talked about, if only because they beat a team who are actually quite good, or at least maybe not at the moment, but in terms of the league table, they were the team that beat a team highest ranked, shall we say. And they were missing players too, Vale. They're without Garrity, they're without Headley, they're without Stockley and Tolai, their starting strikers. So for them to win in those circumstances is pretty impressive as well, with Hackford scoring, with Harper scoring, and then a penalty for Salford to make it 2-1. But Vale seeing it out. I mean, John Taylor of Salford, I don't love highlighting people to criticise, but he's had an absolute shocker in the last couple of games, where they lost 1-0 to Wimbledon in a pretty tight game, where a poor touch from Taylor saw him get robbed of the ball, possibly/probably fouled, and Stevens ran clear the whole of the pitch to finish and win the game for Wimbledon. And it was a pretty tough scene for John Taylor. And then in this game, Taylor gets robbed again in the centre of the park, robbed by Ronan Curtis. Again, he asks for a foul, which isn't given and isn't deserved. It isn't merited in this instance. And Curtis plays through Hackford, who finishes to put Vale ahead. It's a bit of a gift from Taylor and from Salford, and Vale gobble it up gleefully. Then, in the second half, a ball gets played into the box, and a Salford defender clears it straight on to Taylor. This is unfortunate for the lad, but you can't argue with the fact that the ball then falls at the feet of Raheem Harper, who smashes it in, and Vale are 2-0 up. So the last 3 goals that Salford have conceded have been a very tough scene for John Taylor. They weren't helping themselves. They basically gifted Vale 2 goals. And, they needed that fortune with the absences that they have. You still look at the starting 11 on paper, still a good team. The back 3 of Hall, Smith and Deborah give them such a good platform with Amos in goal as well. And Byers playing, as the deepest midfielder. He had the most touches in the game, the most passes into the final third. If Byers starts every game from now to the end of the season, that is going to be very interesting indeed. And you just wonder what happens with Vale now. 8 unbeaten with 5 wins. They're playing 2 of the bottom 5 up next. I think it's Tranmere and then Harrogate. They'll be missing Ronan Curtis probably, who got sent off at the final whistle for an altercation with your mate Negru on loan from Oxford. I cannot for the life of me see what Curtis was sent off for. It looked like, Negru had left one on him, if anything, and Curtis was, vehemently but understandably not very happy about it. Anyway, he got sent off. He'll be missing unless it gets overturned. Vale march on. The league leaders, Walsall, they do too, George, beating Morecambe 2-0.
Yeah, and significant this as well, because it maintains Walsall's remembrance as to how to win games of football, which I think is the most important thing for Walsall, because they still have that gap between those beneath them. And I don't think we're going to see Walsall back to their best between now and the end of the season. I think that's become obvious. Whatever spell they had has been broken, but they don't need to be. They probably need to be like a top half side in order to ensure they win the league. And frankly, that doesn't even matter to their fans. Make sure they win promotion is the most important thing, ideally with as little fuss as possible. And back-to-back wins will help them do that. Realistically, it wasn't a great performance in the first half. Morecambe were probably the better team. That like invincibility that we'd seen previously from Walsall, where they played against sides who could kind of create very little. It wasn't necessarily there with Morecambe creating quite a few decent opportunities. I love the passing stats from this game. They are absolutely phenomenal, especially in the first half, where Walsall, with 55% possession, 71 accurate passes, a 58% success rate. Morecambe,
just knocking it about.
48 completed passes for 46% possession. That is, 120 completed passes in a whole half of football. If you watch a Premier League game, that will get done probably within the first 12 minutes or so. And that was the whole half there. But why would you watch a Premier League game?
2.6 completed passes per minute.
That is phenomenal. Well done to everybody involved. The key moment here came with Reece Williams being sent off after 50 or so minutes. And from there, shortly afterwards, actually from the resulting free kick, we saw Taylor Allen score a from miles out free kick, kind of whipped into the near corner off the post before Dennis Jellis, our friend Jamie Jellis, made the point safe with 3 minutes to go with a nicely taken finish. So a important win, important especially from 11 against 10 when it was 0-0 for Walsall to make their dominance count, which they did. As I said, I don't think this is the case where they've had a wobble and they're back. I'm still pretty concerned about their performance level, and I think up against some of the better teams in the league, they're going to continue to struggle. But that is a really important 6 points heading towards that total needed to finish in the top 3.
Doncaster managed to beat Aki 2-1 despite only having 1 shot on target. It was early on and it was a nice goal, pretty simple goal. Not very impressed with Accrington's defending here. Gibson receiving the ball on the left, a couple of step overs, and without having to cut inside and shoot or even put in a cross or anything, he just picks out Clifton with a square pass. Clifton picks out the top corner for 1-0. Keneally equalised for Accrington from a set piece, and within a couple of minutes, Donny had gone back ahead. An own goal from Ward, bit unfortunate to be honest. And I'd have been interested to see if that sliced clearance from Ward had gone the right side of the post rather than into the net. I'd be interested to see if Donny would have had enough about them to win this game. So I don't think they were particularly impressive. But overall, I'm just left a bit worried for Accrington Stanley. They're in really poor form. They haven't won in 6. They failed to score in 4 of those 6 games. They lost Costello. They lost Zach Orr to injury. And the squad, to me, just looks really poor for the level. A lot of unproven players, some of whom they signed in January from the National League North, who are making their first steps in EFL football. And I'm just worried about the circumstances of them trying to do that while trying to stave off relegation, which is only 4 points beneath them. They have got a game in hand played this midweek. It's against Tranmere, the team beneath them. If they win, I won't really be worried for Accrington Stanley. But as I sit here right now, Monday afternoon, I'm feeling a little bit concerned. It's a huge game against the Tranmere side. George, that went to Notts County, Notts heavily favoured to win this game, did so by 2-1. I did notice that Tranmere had 20 shots in this game, which was about 5 times more than I would have expected.
Yeah, I think there's an element here with Notts County where we just expect them to be strong and dominant because of how good they've been this season. But they are still coping with the loss of quite a few key players, especially from an attacking standpoint. I think it's kind of showing. You know, they were not at their best against Port Vale. They were not at their best in the 1-1 draw against Colchester, which was a decent enough result. And then again here, you know, they've won the game 2-1 thanks to Whittaker and Jatta scoring 2 goals late on before Dennis got one back. But, you know, they're still missing Jody Jones. They're still missing McGoldrick. Jatta back leading the line was clearly important. What's funny about this game is we have Mai Traore off the bench getting 2 assists. And I was like, that's fun. I wonder what the assists were like. If you ever, and we've said this a few times on the pod, if you ever want to watch some highlights that will show why judging a player from assists is one of the stupidest things and one of the laziest ways of analysing creativity, this is your moment. And it will be like one day soon, probably on this pod, probably me saying it, I'll be like, yeah, you know, Traore got 7 assists last season or whatever. The first assist is him trying to spin away from a defender and Whittaker basically tackling him and then running on and scoring. The second assist is the ball basically ricocheting off his face before Alessandro Jatta kind of falls on the floor and prods it home from 6 yards. There is absolutely no skill whatsoever in either, but, you know, 2 assists is going to look good. It's probably boosted his value a little bit. It's going to be forever on his resume. And I just hope that Notts County fans are singing Mai Traore to my Sharona, because if they're not, they're missing a trick. But yeah, it's an important win for Notts County. As you said, you know, not at their best. Tranmere will feel like they probably deserve to get something out of the game. It's not the first time recently the Tranmere have put in a pretty good performance to come away without a win. Again, one of these teams, it's often a recipe for disaster when they play badly, which quite often they lose, and when they play quite well, such as in the 0-0 draw against Fleetwood, they can't find a way to win. They've got their own injury issues coming up soon as well. And with Carlisle and Morecambe playing okay, they're still in massive trouble.
Such an unfortunate team personality, that. When we play badly, we lose. When we play well, we don't win. Must be really annoying. Bradford, when they play well, they tend to win. And guess what? They're playing well quite a lot at the moment. 9 consecutive home wins, 4 clean sheets in a row, only 2 defeats since the end of November, and 23 points since the turn of the year, George, the most in League 2.
And they're just so strong for it. I mean, MK are probably... they're possibly the worst team in the league right now.
Certainly in the conversation.
But you have to beat what's in front of you. And Bradford did it resoundingly. Anthony Sarcevic with both of the goals either side of half time. But it was just relentless one-way pressure. And often when we see a team put in a performance as bad as MK's, these are the ones where I like to listen to the post-match interview. And I listened to Scott Lindsay's. And it's desperate because Scott Lindsay is someone whose Crawley team last season was so relentlessly attacking, and it's clearly the way that he likes his teams to play, is to play with freedom and to attack and to, you know, even if they're conceding at the other end, ensure that they are an attacking force. So to hear him say we were the better team for the first 10 minutes, I know we didn't create anything, but, you know, in terms of like who was in charge, we were the better side. It's depressing because they're so bad. They are just totally unable to mount any kind of attacking threat, despite having players who have shown themselves to be eminently capable of being really good attacking players for the level. Now, going to Bradford, as you say, is as hard an assignment as you're going to get at the moment. They are flying, and they are a massive issue for the other teams vying for those top 3 spots right now, because there's probably a fair argument to say they are the best team in the league. But this was as one-sided, as routine a 2-0 win as you're going to get, with one team creating chances at will, and the other team, yeah, they might have had some spells of possession, but offering absolutely no threat, no attacking force whatsoever.
4 wins in a row for Grimsby Town. Not done yet, Grimsby Town. Don't forget about them. Don't think that this...
That's it. You've done it now. Every time you don't forget about anyone, they have to forget about them straight away.
Mate, I've been taking this from the haters my whole life. But I thought you of all people.
Keep not forgetting about Bromley. I mean, they're back, aren't they?
3 wins in a row, boy, 2-0. Grimsby have won 4 in a row. They beat Fleetwood by 2-1. The opening goal was possibly the goal of the whole weekend in the EFL. George McEachran from way downtown with some serious swaz on it. And look, McEachran doesn't score very many goals. He's like his brother. He likes to pass the ball. He doesn't like to shoot if he can help it. But Artel's been encouraging him to do so. And with the technique that he has, it seems like an obvious thing for him to do. He's having a fantastic season, McEachran. He's a lot busier out of possession, a lot more tenacious than I think maybe he is perceived to be. And he's very, very tidy on the ball, which is exactly what he's perceived to be, and very much runs in the family. It's worth remembering that McEachran, who's 23, I think, still really young, he started in the Under-17 World Cup final when England beat Spain by 5-2. George McEachran started. He was subbed off for Conor Gallagher second half.
Wow.
Just get some energy on to replace our midfield maestro. Let's get the terrier Conor Gallagher on. He was starting in that game with Phil Foden, with Hudson-Odoi, with Gibbs-White, and also with Stephen Sessegnon and Tayshaun Oakley-Booth and Curtis Anderson. And if there is a better reflection on how fascinating youth development is and how difficult it can be to predict, I would like to see it. Because, wow, it's amazing how those careers have panned out as a group. It was 1-1 when Graydon scored, streaking clear, lobbing it over the goalkeeper. A player playing for the COD Army with a chip is something that I wanted to say. But now that I've said it, I regret it massively.
That was nice. It was good. Well done.
Probably not as much as Graydon regrets, like properly and quite aggressively shushing his own fans who were trying to celebrate the equaliser. He's clearly been getting some stick. He hasn't liked it. He's done too much there, and I think it's the sort of thing that can really ruin one's relationship with one's fans. Some of the tweets I saw from Fleetwood fans were pretty ugly after the game because they lost it 3 minutes after equalising. They were behind. Clever set piece. They lined up for a shot. Grimsby sort of 30 yards out, middle of the goal. Just played it square to the left to Denver Hume. He had a nice angle for one of the crosses that he's so good at. And Danny Rose is pretty damn good at headers as well. He headed Grimsby all 3 points. Denver Hume becomes the first League Two player to hit 10 assists this season. Just having a fantastic season at left back. And Grimsby, I find myself asking the question, could they crash the playoff party? The top seven's looking fairly solid at the moment, but they're there. And they're not just vibing like they were to start the season, where it felt like they won a game, then lost the game, then won a game, then lost the game. I've noticed that their defensive numbers in particular have improved massively and significantly so. And that is the sort of thing that could give them a really good foundation for a strong last 10, 12 games. And maybe if anyone drops off in that top seven, maybe it could be Grimsby. For what it's worth, Artel in his interview afterwards basically said, I know what a really good League Two team looks like because I have one at Crewe Alex, and we're miles off that. So, he's very much managing expectations. Colchester, Wimbledon. Yeah, Wimbledon, the only team in the top 7 or 8. Yeah, 8 that didn't win. This was the battle of the unbeaten teams, and still 2 unbeaten teams. Cole Yu equalising through Samson Tavide, his first appearance since Christmas. He headed home a Jack Payne free kick. Wimbledon had gone ahead, and this was nice because there was a great segment done on Sky Sports the other day with Sammy Parkin visiting his old mate Jacko at the training ground and having a really good feature, the sort of EFL feature that we'd like to see more of. And Jacko basically highlighted that there's a bit of a cheat code at the moment that Wimbledon have, and it's Josh the Knife, because he's so dangerous out wide and they get the ball to him so often. He's basically getting double and sometimes triple teamed because League Two left-backs cannot stop Neufville from burning past them. Now, as discussed, his end product isn't always perfect, but that fact is true. League Two left-backs cannot stop Neufville, and it's too dangerous to let him run into the box. So he's getting doubled up, and that obviously creates space elsewhere. One person that's really good at exploiting that is Jake Reeves, the central midfielder, who will drift over to the right-hand side and make sure he's available to receive a simple pass from Neufville. And the goal that they looked at with Sammy Parkin was the goal against Bradford, where Reeves was then able to cross from a kind of KDB crossing position to the back stick, where Tilly was the spare man and headed in. Here, it wasn't the case that they had a spare man at the back post. It was actually Marcus Brown who picked up a really good position on the right side of the box. Reeves fizzed it into him. Brown cut inside and smashed it in for 1-1. So 1-1 draw there between two good, strong League Two teams at the moment. We have Bromley as well, as discussed. They won against Harrogate by 2-0. 3 wins in a row for them. Good combos for both their goals. The first one was Congreve crossing for Cheek, who headed in. The second goal was Congreve crossing for Cheek, who headed it down for Arthurs to finish a 2-0 win. And it's kind of
cheek it down.
Cheeked it down for Arthurs. Hey, Arthurs, stick this in.
Arthur's head.
Yeah, what's that? Is that the thing in Edinburgh? No, that's Arthur's seat. Yeah. Sit down. What's quite fun for Bromley is that they've got Harry McCurdy playing right wing now, which has kind of slipped under my radar.
Mad, isn't it?
And they also have Adam Mayer, formerly of Morecambe, now on loan from Millwall, playing left back and looking really nice. I've really missed watching Adam Mayer play. He's a quality operator down the left. They're 7 points off the playoffs. Could they, Bromley? Could they? Just keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on them. Newport 0, Cheltenham 3. Here's another team in good nick. Bloody hell.
Yeah, Cheltenham absolutely flying. And dominant winners here against Newport. Matty Taylor scoring the first goal with a typical poacher's finish. He's been in decent form recently, enjoying, again, playing for a side who are creating chances. The second goal was the comedy goal of the day, finished off eventually by Ethan Williams, but it was all about Nick Townsend coming out, heading the ball, having an air kick, another Newport player having an air kick, and it falling to Williams about 30 yards out to kind of lob it in if there's no one if there's an open goal, but you kind of get the drift. Before it was Ethan Archer with a really nice strike from range to make it 3-0. But yeah, Cheltenham continuing their very, very strong form. Newport continue to be a side who these weird moments of wins, kind of the outlier amongst lots of very poor performances, but they happen regularly enough that they've got enough points that they're not where they probably should be.
Swindon keep on going under Ian Holloway. 1-0 win at home to Chesterfield. Now, it was decided by a penalty. Shimanga winning it and scoring it. Absolutely horrendous from a Chesterfield point of view. A bad backwards pass to the goalkeeper, Boot, who then took a terrible first touch and then booted Shimanga, who'd nipped in front of him, and Shimanga slotted it past him to win 1-0. Now, it wasn't a game where Swindon battered Chesterfield, but they definitely deserved the win. And I just can't believe how little Chesterfield offered here. And I wonder if it is as simple as they threw the game away against Walsall last Saturday. Paul Cook was so angry after the game and like sort of aggressive in a sense with his criticism of the players, and basically said, well, that's the playoffs done. If you hear your manager here say, that's the playoffs done, we've basically got no choice now, it's not a huge stretch to think that you wouldn't be feeling at your most motivated. And there's still 10 or 12 games to go. They were terrible here. They offered nothing going forward, and they deservedly lost this game. Swindon, they'd won 2 of their first 18 league games this season, and they've won 8 of their last 15. What an impact from Ian Holloway. Last but not least, down at the bottom, we had Carlisle Gillingham, and it was 0-0, a match that happened. Gills better in the first half, Breeze with a save or two. Carlisle better in the second half, but chances falling to Matthew Dennis, to Hugh Gill, among others, and the finishing's been poor in the last few games. Carlisle underperforming in front of goal under Mark Hughes, despite not playing terribly. That underperformance is the last thing that they need, and it has to change for them. And sharpish. It's an interesting one where, because every other team in the bottom 8 lost, Gills and Carlisle both gained a point on those around them. But I dare say for both teams, it didn't feel like that. And there's a lot of work to be done, that's for sure. Thanks for listening. That's been the League Two segment. Cheers. Have a great week. Go well.